Hi, it's Diana Marchand, founder of Raw Foods Made Simple. And thank you for watching this video. And today I am interviewing Dr. Heather Clark. She has a doctorate in pharmacy, and she is here to speak to us about something that I feel is plaguing North America and maybe other countries too, but definitely here, and that is burnout. Women just doing too much, trying to do too much, feeling fatigued, exhausted, and they don't know what to do about it. So Heather absolutely deals with this, and this is her specialty. So she's going to help you understand it a little bit more and also understand some of the signs and the symptoms and what you can do about it. So welcome, Heather. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so to start out with, I know you really are a specialist and help women deal with burnout, which could, we sometimes burnout seems such a broad topic.
Yeah.
Such a broad, which adrenal fatigue can kind of fit into it, and more people might have heard about that. But how would you describe somebody that may be suffering from burnout? When they come to you, what are they experiencing?
It's a variety of symptoms, and it's really kind of hard to pinpoint, oh, you have this symptom, so that's clearly burnout. It's not quite as easy as that. Sometimes they're pretty vague, but what's most common is feeling fatigue, like exhausted for apparently no reason. And it's not just physical fatigue, it's mental fatigue as well. And a lot of times people just aren't really feeling well, but they kind of can't quite put their finger on what the problem is. They're not sleeping well,
Mm-hmm.
and that can look like anything from laying in bed for hours and not getting to sleep, or getting right to sleep and then, I'm up at 2 or 3 a.m. Great.
Right.
Or sleeping and then, wow, I'm up at 4 now for the day. So it looks like a lot of different things, but those physical symptoms are some of the more common ones. Um, Other symptoms can be, you just kind of feel down. It's a little bit different than depression. It doesn't feel the same, but it's still kind of just a feeling down and then kind of a feeling, whatever. People with burnout, that's like one of their favorite words. Oh, whatever. I'll just worry about it later. So it's this
Yeah.
whole constellation of symptoms. And so I know that since there's so many random symptoms that your followers will probably want something a little bit more specific. And if they like, they can go to isitburnout.com.
Oh, great.
And I've got a questionnaire there that people can take and kind of assess, is it likely burnout or not? So it's one of the easiest things I've found that people
Oh,
can really tell just on their own.
oh, that sounds
The,
good. Thank you.
yeah. The way to know for sure is to get some lab testing.
Mm-hmm.
And I prefer saliva testing. It's testing for cortisol, which is one of the stress hormones. And that gives a person a picture of whether or not it is burnout. And then it helps a person stage it and then decide what to do to get rid of it from there.
Right. So should they, now I know you are in the United States, so it's different than Canada, but so here we would probably go see a naturopath or something, a nutritionist to do that type of testing, because I don't think our regular doctors do that. I don't know if it's the true for you guys over there or not. But is that kind
Yeah,
of true?
most traditional physicians don't test in this manner.
Right.
Most traditional approaches, if there's any testing at all, it's a blood test.
Right.
And it's my opinion the blood test doesn't really reflect what's going on in the tissues. And then the other issue with that is on the whole spectrum, like for a blood test, this is normal.
Yes.
So if you're anywhere in here, then you're normal, when in fact, this is optimal. So there's a
Right.
huge difference. But certainly naturopaths and other practitioners like that can do similar testing.
Great. Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. And now, so they would come to see, so you help women, like if someone comes to you and they know they're in burnout, or they probably are pretty like it's affecting their life in every single way, right? And
Oh,
so they
yeah.
realize that they can't function properly. It's probably feeling of being apathetic or not caring, like you said. And so then they let everything go. Is that right? Like, and then they're realizing, God, like my job is slipping, my relationship is slipping. I don't want to spend time with friends anymore because I'm just feeling blah and I'm not feeling good. I don't feel like going out. I don't feel like doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And so many times they might think, oh my God, I'm slipping into a depression, and then maybe get some antidepressants from their doctor or something, when in reality that does not correct or make them feel better. It doesn't, because there's something inside that needs to be healed, more or less, right? So if anybody's feeling that,
Yeah.
those are signals. Wake up, it's time for you to heal your body.
And in fact, what you've described is an advanced case of burnout.
Right, okay, yeah.
People with they've run right past stages 1 and 2, and now they're smack in the middle or towards the end of stage 3, to have all of those symptoms at once. And it's certainly true that a lot of people do get an antidepressant, and honestly, it helps, but it only helps on the order of months. It's not the solution, it's a tool, but it's just one tool in the toolkit, really. But other things that you mentioned, especially earlier stages of burnout, it's just a non-specific. You might not even realize what all's going on, but you're like, suddenly I'm making less money. Like, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you get your own clients, just suddenly the clients aren't there anymore, or you get clients that aren't ideal. That's actually an indication of an early stage of burnout. Other things like, well, my relationship just doesn't seem as great. That's also a potential early signal of burnout. So when you say it touches every area of people's lives, you are very right about that. It's everything.
Right. So then what are some of the things that people can do about this, like that can help? Or is there anything we can start to do when we start feeling those earlier stages that may help?
There's a lot of things a person can do, but what I would encourage you to not do is run out and buy a supplement to help you with your burnout and adrenal fatigue. Well, why? It probably will help you feel better, which isn't a bad thing. But the problem is it helps you feel better enough that you kind of stop there, and you haven't addressed the underlying problem. So the problem is getting worse and worse and worse, but you're not feeling worse. So that's the real risk of just going out and getting a supplement. And if you're choosing to do it, everybody has a choice, but I just want people to understand the choice that they're making. Some other very simple things to do is it's eat, sleep, and be mindful.
I know, it sounds so simple, right? But you got to do it.
And as you know, nutrition is critical. It's critical. So you want to eat things that support your recovery. And then you want to avoid things which create stress.
Right.
So for many of us, gluten is a big stressor because of gluten sensitivity.
Yeah.
Sometimes dairy is a big issue. Occasionally soy is a problem. There's a whole list of foods.
Yeah.
Caffeine isn't helpful, alcohol, all of these kinds of things. So if you can remove those from your diet, bring in high quality foods, sometimes that's all it takes. That supports yourself and really supports your recovery and helps your body kind of rebalance. If you've got a very mild case, that might be all you need to do.
Right.
In addition, sleep. Sleep is so important here. You want to at least create a situation where you're likely to get 8 hours of sleep. So if you're going to bed at midnight, but the alarm goes off at 6, that's not going to work. So you would at least get in bed by 10. Now, because burnout can sometimes make a person not sleep well, you may or may not get that full 8 hours, but you've at least created a situation where you could.
Right. Yeah. So go to bed early, even if you tend to wake up, well, at least you're doing your best by getting to bed early. Right?
Exactly. And the other problem with getting to bed early is it's tricky because a lot of people with burnout get their second wind long about 7, 8, or 9 p.m. I know when I was sick with this, I was loading the dishwasher and doing laundry at 11 p.m. because that's when I had the energy to do it. Now, the alarm was still going off at 5.
Wow.
But I felt like, oh, this is the only time I have to do it.
Yeah.
Well, looking back, I see lots of changes I could have made. And honestly, if I had gotten to bed at 7 or 8, I would have felt a lot better. Now, I was in a very advanced stage 3. So don't hear this like, oh, I have to go to bed at 7.
Right, yes.
No, not necessarily. But I let it go way too long, and that's what I probably could have done.
Yeah.
But at any rate, take naps when you need to. There's no shame in sleeping in the middle of the day. And in fact, it'll probably make you feel like $1 million. So that's very important. But really, the third thing is simply being mindful. And if you want to make it hard, you can sit for 15 minutes and meditate and do all of that kind of thing. But I'm here to tell you, if you've got burnout, you can't sit and meditate for 15 minutes. Your brain will not let you.
So you mean your brain is just thinking all the time? Is that what it is? Or it can't relax? Or what happens?
Well, with burnout, your stress response is on. And it's stuck on. It's kind of like if you imagine the gas and the brakes. With burnout, you're mashing the gas, but you're running out of fuel. So your brain doesn't let you focus for longer periods of time. It comes up with at least a dozen distractions if you try to just sit and have a quiet moment. You get the chatter and what about this? What about that? We need to be doing this and we need to, that kind of a thing. So with burnout, you kind of can't sit and meditate.
Yeah.
You can sit and sort of space out or be distracted, but your brain won't let you be mindful for a long period of time. So there's a way around it. Because really being mindful is just being present in the now, paying attention, and allowing without judgment or attachment. That's all mindfulness is. So you can slip it in anywhere, but one of the things that I find works best for my clients is I call them moment meditations. Mm-hmm. They are very simple, very easy, and very short. There's a lot of right ways to do it, but one way would be, so sit somewhere, maybe put both feet on the floor, and then just feel how the chair feels. How is the chair supporting you? For me, I've got arms on the chair. How do the arms feel under my arms? I can kind of listen to what are the sounds in the room? What's the light look like? Are there shadows being cast? Just noticing that. And then kind of coming back and noticing, well, how do I feel? Like, oh, I have some shoulder tension. Okay. How am I breathing? I'm breathing kind of shallowly. Okay. And in and out, and you're done. That's it. It's like 20 seconds.
Yeah, and they can even do that at their desk, right? Like if somebody's at work, or driving in your car, although you're going to be driving. Can you do it driving? Just better ask you now. Because sometimes I tell people to do those mindful moments when they're driving. Is that okay?
As long as you're not zoning out. If you're doing the type of mindfulness where you're really present in the now and paying attention, yeah. Okay. I often will recommend do it at a stoplight just in case.
Yes. Okay. And then you're like, people are honking. Yeah. Yeah.
But I've gotten crazy good results, not just in my own life, but with my clients. Coming in, stage 3 adrenal fatigue, can barely focus. It takes time to get through our appointments because, they can't find words and they can't. But this is something that they can do. Right. Do it 5 times a day. So that's like a total of what, 2.5 minutes in your entire day?
That's right. You always have time. Yeah.
Huge results.
Good.
Like surprising, disproportionately good results. It's so easy. And it makes everything else easier. So those are some things that people can do to just kind of get started.
Oh, that sounds so good. And that is something I think people can do. And you know what? It makes you, I do those throughout the day, and I do it especially in the morning and in the evening. And I find that gets you in a calmer place. And is that so it helps to lower cortisol levels? Can it do that?
It eventually helps to lower cortisol levels, but what it does with that whole gas in the brakes, it's touching the brakes.
Okay,
your stress response system is kind of stuck on, and this is a way to kind of tap the brakes.
Okay. Very good.
So it gives your body just a chance, truly just a moment without it, and you feel calmer. It's easier to do the next thing. And of course, as you do it more, you get even more results.
Right.
But even with the first one, you're noticeably calmer.
Great. That's so good. Now, what if someone is in how long? Like, if someone is just feels to the point where they're now like that real exhaustion state, how long would it take? I know everybody must be different to recover from something like that. Like, what is
it? Depends on how long you've let it go.
Right. Okay.
If you kind of catch yourself in mid-stage 2, which is the kind of thing where, well, I'm kind of tired, and I don't know, maybe something's wrong, maybe it's not, I'm not really sure. That whole, if you catch it then, a person can recover within about 3 years doing it on their own.
3 years, really?
Well, that's a total recovery. It takes a long time.
Wow.
Now, there are ways to speed it up. And what I have found, one of the best ways is a comprehensive program.
Yes.
Where you're not just looking at nutrition. You're not just, here's some supplements.
Yeah.
It's, here's a nutrition plan. Here's some supplements. Let's add some mindfulness. Let's address the root cause.
And when you say, I just want to, because I meant to ask you, when you say root cause, are you talking about something specific, or is it different for everyone? Is it something that they've done in their life that causes this? Like, what do you mean by root cause?
What I've discovered is, the very origin of the problem. It's, because here's the deal, stress causes burnout. Mm-hmm. But there's lots of stress. We've had lots of stress. So I had been puzzling over this, what, because I'm all about root causes. What went wrong first? What was the deal? And what I've discovered is it's the creation of the identity gap. That's the root cause. And what I mean by that is when we come into the world, we are wired a particular way. And it's who we really are. And I call that the soul. It's who you truly are. And then what we do at a very early age is we develop an identity. Because that identity is easier to get along with. That identity is easier to take care of, and it's really a survival mechanism. So, and it comes about, sometimes it's 3 years old, sometimes it's 5 years old, sometimes it's 7. And it's interesting because your soul doesn't necessarily want to pick up their socks, but your identity will, that kind of a thing. So your identity is easier to raise, it's easier to teach, and if you're very lucky, they remain close. But for most of us, over the years, the identity kind of gets further and further away because you've got your soul, who you really are, and your identity is really how you're being.
Oh, right. Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
And all the stress and tension is in this gap.
Sorry, there's a plane.
So, with that gap...
Just wait, Heather.
So with that identity gap, little decisions take us further and further away from who we really are. Like you're in a job, hey, would you like to be the manager? And you think, well, I'll make more money. Sure. And that may be taking you just a little bit further away from who you really are. Oh, let's move here. Okay, it's just a little bit further away. And pretty quick, there's a lot of stress and tension.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, but what happens is your identity decides it's who you really are.
But you're not.
So it is very resistant to leaping back to closing the gap. It's very resistant to that. And you can tell, you can kind of gauge how big your identity gap is by how often you say should, or have to, or I need to, or I can't, or I should really go pick that up and be part of that committee. That's your identity that wants to do that, because your identity is very wrapped up in looking good and keeping up its own identity.
Right.
So any decision made from the identity brings tension. It brings heaviness. It brings stress. Any decision made from the soul brings ease. It brings calm. It brings centering. So that is one of the things that makes some of the most difference for my clients, are things that we do to really close that gap.
Wow, that's so powerful.
It is, and it's part of the reason why the recovery only can be done in as little as 4 months. Now, if you've let this go to stage 3, it might take a year, but from years to months. And then once you've closed that gap, you never want to open that gap again, because it feels so good to just be who you really are. You got to know yourself. You got to love yourself. And then you have to really be yourself. And that's it. It never happens again. You feel amazing. You have fantastic health. It's such a joy to help people with this. I just can't even tell you. I get tingly when I talk about it.
That totally excites me so much, because
Yes.
I believe 1,000% in that. And I think you're probably the first person that I've ever talked about that kind of joins those two. Because you hear of people who say, oh, my life is so perfect and wonderful and I just feel joy all the time. But we're like, how do you get there? And, my life's feeling so wrong. Like, how did you do that? But there's no, like, what you put it in such a clear way that if we're here and we feel that unease, it's because we've, like, torn apart part of ourselves, and like you said, taken on an identity that this is what we should, need, and have to do, and what our soul really wants to do is like over here, and we're unable to bring it together. And sometimes it takes someone, well, I believe it mostly takes you to work with somebody who can help you do that, right?
I think so, because all of the physical symptoms that come up really kind of prevent getting this together as well. It's a negative feedback loop is what it is.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I know you have to go. You're a very busy woman because you help people in these profound ways.
Yes.
So I'm so happy that you took time to join us. And absolutely. So your website is vibrantagain.com. So if anybody else wants to find out more information about what you do and how you do it and everything, that they can go to that site and then also try the questionnaire on isitburnout.com.
That's correct.
Thank you so much, Heather. I'm so appreciative of you taking time out of your busy day to talk to us and give us this fantastic information. And I hope it really gets people start to thinking, and now really helping to bridge that gap, right? To bring yourself closer to who you really are meant to be in this world.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. I've so appreciated this, and I just so enjoy this.
Thank you so much, Heather. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.